Okay, today we are here to present an introduction to the SMETA program to develop systems to have some and to develop some items to comply with the SMETA program. This introduction video is to talk to you a little bit about health and safety training and the future training that we will be performing at Golden Grove Rice Mill from Hub Group. For the introduction, I would like to present to you to Ms. Kenita Roberts. She will go through a very brief introduction to the program and the following training that we will have at the rice mill. Kenita, welcome. So the floor is yours, and please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenita Roberts. Thank you, Mr. Espinosa, for introducing me. Today, we'll go through a health and safety training that we plan to present to the workers of the Akayum Hack and Son Golden Grove Rice Mill. The person we'll introduce. Now, this training serves to update you on the health and safety changes within the operation of the rice mill, to remind you about the company rules and your role at the Akayum Hack and Sons Golden Grove Rice Mill, and to gather concerns and observations of the rice mill. Here we have the organizational chart for the rice mill, where there is the general manager, mill supervisor, maintenance supervisor, office lab supervisor, dryer supervisor, and the parboiled supervisor. As it relates to our company rules, must be punctual when reporting for duty, be equipped with the personal protective equipment before starting duty, no eating, drinking, or smoking within the rice mill, and these can be done with the designated area. No jewelry or loose clothing in the mill. Clothing should be fitted and long hair must be tied back. Be on the alert and aware of your surroundings at all times, and all accidents must be reported. No alcohol is allowed on the premises. Now, I would have written down all of the responsibilities for the employees, the supervisors, and the employee. These will be communicated to our workers. I'd just like to specifically go through the responsibility of the employee due to the target audience of this video. Number one, ensuring that equipment, clothing, materials, and other protective devices are maintained in good condition. Provide information, instruction, supervision, assistance, and training to workers, supervisors, and medical practitioners with respect to workers' health and safety. Assisting and cooperating with Safety and Health Joint Committee and representatives. Non-employment of underage workers or knowingly underage persons in or near the workplace. Taking every reasonable precaution to protect the worker, preparing a written occupational health and safety policy, reviewing it and implementing it. We must comply with the Health and Safety Act of Guyana. This act, Health and Safety, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, Chapter 9906 of 1997, was created to regulate workplace safety for employees. The Act realizes the rights and duties of the interested parties, which includes the supervisors, employees, and the employer, procedures of the workplace, hazards, law enforcement, and health and safety. This is done through 11 sections. In addition to the previously mentioned, there is the accident reporting section, hazardous chemicals, among other aspects covered under the Act. The Act can be accessed online. Now, when we're looking at health and safety, there are different hierarchies of control. Please note that the least effective, or the one we must go to last, is PPE, which is a personal protective equipment. When looking at the rice mill and its procedures, we must first look at elimination. How can you eliminate some of the hazards that might be present at the rice mill? If we can't eliminate it, then we can substitute it. Replace something in, replace something, engineering controls, administrative controls, and then PPE. Now, before we assess the hazards of our rice mill, we must know what is a hazard. Now, a hazard is described as a source or a situation that may be potential or may have potential harm to humans, property, or the environment. While a risk is described as a chance of something happening which can result in a negative. At the training, we plan to gather what are some hazards that the workers have experienced and how they would avoid them. Now, health and safety within the rice mill. As I mentioned earlier, PPE must be the last resort. However, our workers must wear PPE so that they will be protected in any unfortunate incident. So some of the PPE that should be worn include safety vest, safety helmet, dust mask, and there are two kinds, steel-toed boots, safety gloves, ear muffs or ear plugs, and safety gloves. Now, we would have looked at a fire drill and evacuation for the rice mill, and I would have put down the emergency numbers that can be contacted in the case of an unfortunate incident, and we must contact the general manager, and then they are the brigades which were identified to assist or to perform responsibilities that can help to reduce the amount of damage and also to ensure that everyone is okay in a case of an unfortunate incident. Now, the evacuation plan must consider the bonds, the parboiled area, the drying area, the compact area, the lab area, lunch area, and the offices. Everyone in those areas must be removed in the case of an unfortunate event. Now, the role of the brigade in an emergency, they must ensure that the fire service has been called and the general manager is informed of a fire. Emergency actions, they must relate all emergency actions to the public service so they can be updated on what was done before. They must ensure that the fire procedures have been activated, such as the emergency lights. They must ensure the electricity has been shut down, and persons who may have been working in areas of flammable gases or liquids, that they would have turned off those sources, and they must ensure that all the workers are accounted for. Now, the role of the worker in the emergency, the employees must stop everything that they're doing and proceed to evacuate in a calm manner. Once a worker is aware of an equipment that could enhance a fire, they must switch the power off immediately. And all employees must assemble at the muster point. Now, in the case of a fire, these are the following documents that needs to be filled out, or in the case of a fire drill. So for example, you have a fire drill record, you must keep record of all fire drills that were completed, fire drill attendance sheet, who was there, firefighting equipment inventory, so you must ensure that whatever firefighting equipment that is on site, that it is updated and it is in working order. And if there was a potential fire, that should be reported and investigated. Now, signage at the rice mill, they are particular ways in which the signs must be done to ensure that it is eye-catching. So for example, at the rice mill, we would have looked at the signages that are already present, and we would have classified it into what may come under danger. And danger means that it must be immediately stopped because it can cause potential injury or even death. That includes no smoking, no cell phone, no earpiece. For example, if persons are playing music in their ears, they indicating that there's highly flammable substances, and they stay away from the turbine when in operation. For caution, it indicates that there's a minor hazard and the warning of the unsafe practices. So for example, it might be hot lines and surfaces, moving machinery. Same goes for safety instructions. So basically reminding persons of what are the safe practices within a particular area of the rice mill, and warning. There's an intermediate hazard level, so you want persons to, protect your ears, stay away from stun sacks. All safety instructions must be put in place that it can be immediately observed. There are also notice and emergency safety signs. Chemical labeling and storage of the rice mill. At the rice mill, there's the use of fuel, waste oil, fertilizers, and fumigation tablets. Now, each chemical that is used at the rice mill must be collected with the labeling of, in the first panel, it must have chemicals. It must have labeling from the suppliers under these headings, which you must have the product identifier, signal words, the safety data sheet, cautionary instructions, hazard pictograms, hazard statements. So the hazard pictograms is seen here. And these pictograms would indicate what is the level of the hazard. So for example, you might have an exploding bomb, you might have explosive elements, you might have flame, you might have a health hazard. These symbols must be known by all the workers so they can know what they should do with those chemicals. As it relates to the rice mill must label their products or their chemicals. It must have the product identifier, it must have safe handling precautions, and it must have a safety data sheet so that workers who are handling it can comply. I have a video here. There's a video we plan to show at the actual training. As it relates to this, the eye wash or the emergency showers, this is how it would look. And well, if we're doing eye wash alone, how you would use it is take off a cover and replace the actuator. So it's very easy to use in the case of an emergency. As it relates to the shower, just pull this down, pull the handle, and you stand exactly under the shower to wash off. This is not a video we plan to show. Second video as it relates to chemical exposure. Spill kits. So clearly labeled spill kits will be strategically placed by the generator, the fuel tank, and the mechanical department. And this is in a case where oil or fuel may have been thrown away by accident. The spill kits can help to immediately clean up that oil or fuel. Now, in the case of oil spill or fuel spill, you must use the absorbent materials within that kit. You make an entry into the accident and emergency record book, and you also inform the EPA. This is what the spill kit would look like, and these are some of the components of it. Accident reporting is very, very important at the rice mill, and these are some of the forms that must be filled out in order to keep a record of what had happened at the rice mill. That includes a fire emergency, chemical spills, and medical emergency. First aid training for workers should be considered in a case where this method can save the life of a worker. This is another video to help the workers understand why it's so important to observe everything when there is an accident. Grievance mechanism. Now, in order to address the concerns, discontentment and dissatisfaction of workers at the A. Cayune and Sons Golden Grove Rice Mill, the grievance mechanisms are as follows. Now, the workers must move in steps. So in step 1, the individual should prepare a written or verbal complaint to the department supervisor, which should prepare a written response to that individual, where a meeting should be scheduled to discuss the concerns of the worker, and a witness will be present if desired. And this should occur within 5 days. Now, at step 2, if the person is not or if the person is dissatisfied and the situation is unresolved, they may report their complaint to a neutral party, such as the main office of the rice mill. Now, that written document of the supervisor's response points from the previously held meeting, which should be communicated. This step here should take about 7 days, and yeah, it should take about 7 days. Now, if the ways in which the worker can submit complaints, we're suggesting that you can have a complaint box where persons can submit complaints anonymously, and it's checked by the mill supervisor in case there's anything that can be sorted out in-house without having to communicate directly with the person who made a complaint. And this is to prevent any bad blood that could be, started. Persons or workers or employees, they can bring up concerns at meetings, and they can also discuss those concerns privately with the supervisor. At step 3, if the person is dissatisfied with how things were handled in step 2, then the grievance would have to be carried directly to top management, which would include the general manager, where a formal meeting must be scheduled to address the grievance of the worker, accompanied by the written records of how the issues were dealt with in steps 1 and 2. And this should be done within 7 days of making that grievance. Now we have some documentation for the grievance mechanism, and that would include the grievance form from individual dealing with the concern and the response to the grievance documentation. Now, in a case where there was an incident or accident, according to the Health and Safety Act of Guyana, Section 7, the workplace accidents that result in death or occupational health diseases should be reported to the related authority within 4 days of an employer or employee accident. Now, this authority for us in Guyana is the Ministry of Labor, upon which an investigation will be initiated. So there are 2 steps that needs to be done in order to report that concern, and would be filling out an accident form by the Ministry of Labor, and this can be accessed directly from the Ministry of Labor, and filling out the first schedule notice of an accident, which is according to the Health and Safety Act. And that form can be accessed from the main office of the rice mill. This brings me to the end of my presentation, and thank you for listening.